Hello everybody and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel, and this is the Rating the Ratings show after the 1-1 draw with AC Milan at Old Trafford. I've rewatched the game this afternoon. I'm recording this early on Friday evening, the day after the game. I've rewatched the game today. As I've often said, when you've watched your team and you've watched a game live, it is a frustrating time. It's a frustrating thing at times when you're watching that game, when you want your team to do well, you want them to play well, you want them to score goals, you want them to win, and sometimes every little thing that goes wrong is magnified. And I think the opposite is true as well. When your team wins, I think you sometimes think they've played better than they actually played as well, and people get carried away with victories. And then they also get carried away with games where they think they should win and they don't win, whether they draw them or whether they lose them. I've watched the game back again today, and I think sometimes you've got to give the opposition some credit, and I think AC Milan played particularly well. I think they're a good side. They're second in Serie A, just like we're second in the Premier League, and it's a proper decent game. We had a few missing, but so did they, and we could have fielded a stronger side without a doubt. We definitely could have fielded a stronger side. With what we had on the bench, we could have fielded a stronger side. And I believe we should have done. We needed to try and put that game, not put it to bed, but to put ourselves in the driving seat, if at all possible, for the second leg. And I think he'll go with a stronger team as he can possibly field now. When it comes to the second leg, they've now got the away goal. It's 1-1. They've got the advantage. They are actually in front, aren't they? Because if it finishes 0-0 over there, they go through. So they're actually in front. So we need to go over there and do something. One of the things that's been levelled, and obviously a lot of people are levelling things on Twitter, especially about the players that I'm saying should play. And I'll mention this when I come to these players and I'm doing the ratings as I go through it. But something that's levelled at the team in general about needing to. United need to pass it quicker. You hear the commentators saying it. You hear the pundits saying it, and then obviously a lot of the fans saying it. When the fans say it, they get on particular players' backs. Matic is a major one for them picking on for it, and it's about the slowness of the passing, how slow we are on the ball. And having watched the game back, I would love to challenge some of these people to actually show me on the screen when the ball should have been played more quickly. There will be some instances, of course, there will definitely be some instances, but to say that we've just played the ball too slowly all the time, I don't think it's right. So, sometimes you have to hold the ball until a pass is on. Sometimes it's the right, you pass it at the right moment. If you take one touch, I often hear pundits. I'm sure I've heard Robbie Savage say it a couple of times. Don't listen to what he's got to say. United keep taking too many touches on the ball. These are all top professional footballers. They're second in the Premier League. All right, not all of the players play all the time, but sometimes it's the correct thing to take 2 or 3 touches just while the situation changes or until a pass becomes on. Sometimes you receive the ball you haven't got a pass on, and I could put dozens of clips up from the team, but I could put, as I say, Matic is one of the main ones who gets singled out for it. I could put lots of clips up where they actually pass it first time. As I've said before, how quick do you want them to pass it? I could probably put, just of Matic, I could probably put 10 clips up of him playing first time passes. As soon as it comes to him, the correct thing is to pass it now because somebody's available there, so he gives it there straight away. I could put up 10, 12, 14 clips just of Matic, dozens of clips from the team. So how quick can you play it, and how often are they actually holding it too long when there is something on and not something on? It's a really difficult thing. Like I say, I'd love to challenge somebody, because I believe it might take 20 minutes before somebody goes, should have passed that quicker, that should have gone already. And like I say, there will be the odd instance, but to keep banging on about it, it's as if that's the thing that's going wrong all the time, as if all the players are holding the ball too long, and 1 or 2 players in particular, of course. And I don't think it's the case. I really don't. Now, it'd be nice if as a team, don't forget, you can only pass it if you've got a pass on. You know, it's one thing saying, I wish you would have passed it by now. You might see an instance. Don't forget, we've all only got these pictures to go off. You know, you're all seeing the same film, the same coverage. These people who are saying this on Twitter, they're not at the game, just like I'm not at the game. They're watching the same footage that I'm seeing. I'd love to challenge him to say, show me where it should have been passed quicker. And I'll bet the first 5 times they say he's held that too long, he's had it 3 touches or he's had it 4 touches. I bet you'll find that in virtually every instance, not everyone, like I say, but in virtually every instance, it will be that there isn't a pass on. You know, he's taking hold of the ball and maybe there's a man in front and you shift it to one side and there's nothing on there, so you turn back and you pass it backwards, another thing that they don't like. But you can only pass it when you've got a pass on. And I don't think, like I say, I've just studied the game. I don't know how you can improve it. Players need to make themselves available. It's a whole thing. It's a team thing. But to say that the players, and 1 or 2 players in particular, are too slow with the ball and passing it too slowly, I don't think it's a fair criticism. I think most of the players pass it as quickly as they can. You know, they don't hog it for no reason, most of the players. And those that do get it wrong sometimes, they don't get it wrong every time. There might be the odd occasion. And certainly, most of the fans who are talking like this, they're talking about the team being able to create chances and score goals. I'm sure the players rarely don't pass it quickly when there's a chance to make a chance. So I wanted to get that off my chest because, like I say, I've just watched it again and I've studied it and I do this regularly. And I don't see too many instances where a player, any given player, holds it too long when there's an obvious pass that he should be playing. And as I say, that's on the footage that I'm seeing, and other people are seeing the same footage and I think seeing it differently. I've got the ratings in front of me from the Manchester Evening News, and I'm going to go through them now and see what I think of them. Dean Henderson, well beaten by Frank Kessie for a disallowed goal. It was a cracking goal, that, by the way, wasn't it? And denied Alexis Salamakers. Made a better save in the second half, but could have done better with the goal. They've given him a 5. A 5 is average, I think, and a 6 is decent, and decent's only a little bit better than average. So I think a 6. I do feel as though he could have done a bit better with the goal. It's a soul-destroying job being a keeper. One mistake for the keeper, you know, an outfield player can make 10 mistakes and not get castigated as much as a keeper can for one mistake. And I know they're putting themselves in that position, but I don't think he deserves to be marked as a 5 because he made one error, which he did make one error and otherwise played. So I'm not saying he was fantastic, but I think to say he had a decent game is perfectly fair. He had a decent game. Juan Basaka, they've said, offered little in attack once again, but he's starting to look fatigued. Substituted in the last 20 minutes. They've given him a 6, the same as they gave the keeper a 5. I'll agree with that. I'll give Juan Basaka a 6 as well. Just a decent game, nothing more, nothing less. They've said substituted with 20 minutes to go after they said he was starting to look fatigued. I don't think that's the reason. There's 3 substitutions made all at the same time. Bruno, who rarely comes off, and certainly rarely comes off with more than a minute or 2 to go. So Bruno came off at exactly the same time. They made 3 subs. So Bruno was definitely brought off with an eye on resting him for the West Ham game. And I believe it's definitely the case with Juan Basaka as well. He'll be playing against West Ham. And just because he came off at the exact same time as well, plus we're a bit short in the front line injury-wise, I think Dan James was also brought off with an eye on Sunday's game. So with him saying looked fatigued and substituted in the last 20 minutes, only substituted in the last 20 minutes in order to make sure he's fit for Sunday, I think. Eric Baily, solid on his 100th United appearance, and his pace bailed United out a number of times. Covered dependably for Harry Maguire. They've given him an 8. I think they must be joking. An 8's very good on my things. I will give him a 7 which is good. That's all it is. He played well, and he's lucky to get a 7. I'm definitely knocking 1 off. I'm tempted to knock 2 off. Yeah, a little bit too erratic at times for me, Eric. His heading there was one header that he headed straight up in the air that I remember. I remember him trying to play a pass that was ridiculously over it, went all the way up to the goalkeeper. You know, not just one or two things, other things as well. But I would say that he had a decent game. I've actually gone a 7. They've gone 8. I've only knocked 1 point off, which just means that he played well. I'm not having it that he played any better than well. Now, the next thing is ridiculous. Harry Maguire, vulnerable against a long ball, and then entered the pantheon of great United misses. He did enter the pantheon of great United misses. More settled after the pause, and they've given him a 5. How you could give Harry Maguire a 5 and Eric Baily an 8 is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. Not a lot to choose between them, I don't think. As I always say, different strengths, different weaknesses. Harry did miss a sitter from a yard out, if that. Don't think it was even a yard out. It hit his shin pad, I think, and then hit the post. I will just about agree that Eric maybe deserves a little bit more. So I've reduced Eric from an 8 to a 7, and I'm increasing Harry from a 5 to a 6. So I'd say Eric just about edged it, but not by much at all. And a lot of that's to do with the fact that Harry missed a chance from a yard out. Alex Telles, a major downgrade on Luke Shaw. They've said he was predictably missed by United. Saw out the game with Shaw in front of him, they've said. They seem to exchange a little bit. Shaw seems to start as a centre-back, then go to left wing-back, and Telles tucked back in. So they changed it around a little bit. And they've given Telles a 5. I would agree with that. I thought Telles was particularly, average at best, really. And 5 is average, so I would agree with that 5. Scott McTominay did not get a stranglehold of the game as he continues to work his way back to full fitness. Not great preparation for a West Ham game. They've given him a 6, and a 6 is decent. I would say he had a decent game. I agree with that. I give him a 6. And then again, this is a disgrace. I'm sure they're going to, I think he will lose his place for the weekend, but the people that are watching the game, including the manager and the coaches, I don't see it the way they see it, and I think I'm right, and I think they're wrong, and I think this writer's wrong. On Nemanja Matic failed to impose his experience, and United's risk-aversive midfield held them back. Risk-aversive midfield. Then they put Bruno Fernandes influenced the game from deep. Why have they put? I don't even understand why that is written in Nemanja Matic's little write-up. Nemanja Matic failed to impose his experience, and United's risk-aversive midfield held them back. Then they've put Bruno Fernandes influenced the game from deep. But they've given Matic a 4. Absolutely disgraceful. Disgraceful. There's no need for it. Matic was perfectly fine. A 6 is a decent game. I'm not saying he was Bobby Charlton or anything like that, but he was certainly decent. The risk-aversive midfield bit, that's a little bit like what I've just been talking about. You can only pass it to players that are available. We struggled a little bit up front last night. I've got to come to Anthony Martial. Yeah, he got a knock in the first 10 or 15 minutes. He wasn't quite himself throughout the half. He went off at half-time. Matic played the full game. In the second half, we could hardly hit the strikers with the ball. They've got to make themselves available. You can only pass it to people who are available. So when they say risk-aversive, what is he talking about there? Is he talking, I'm going to speak about a pass that I saw Bruno do in a minute. When you talk about risk-aversive, what does he want him to do? Just keep knocking it over the top, everybody chase out? Did he want him to play like Sunday League players? You know, what does risk-aversive mean? I'm going to take a risk here, I'm going to knock a long ball and hopefully somebody can chase it and get hold of it. Is that what they mean? Because that's not how Premier League football is played. I promise you it isn't. So it might have been risk-aversive, it might well have been. But if there was anything worthwhile trying or a worthwhile attempt at taking a risk, I'm sure he would have done it better than taking risks, by the way, when there's nothing there to be gained from taking a risk. And I'll come to that one in a bit when I get to Bruno. But I think that's a disgrace for Nemanja Matic. I've just rewatched it, perfectly fine. Passes it first and second touch loads of times. Holds on to it, and I think he's a big lad, and the way he moves with the ball gives the impression of holding on to it too long. But he's holding on to it until there's a pass available. I would love to sit down, as I've just said, with, well, you couldn't do it, could you, with thousands of people and say, you show me there where he should pass it to. He's holding it because there's nothing there, and then he looks that way, there's something there, and he gives it. Or if there's nothing there, he changes again. He even checks back sometimes and goes the other way. And I think Matic, I'm tempted to give him more than a 6. He's perfectly fine, absolutely perfectly fine, and passes it at the right moment most of the time. There will be the odd one, like I say, like there is for everybody, where maybe he should have done differently. But in general, pretty decent, and a 6 is decent. That's all I'm saying. He had a decent game, and I'm giving him a 6. Mason Greenwood, disappointingly tepid against Diego Dalot in the first half, and moved to centre forward in Anthony Martial's absence for the second half. They've given him a 5. I think he was decent, Mason Greenwood, as well. I'll up Mason Greenwood to a 6, nothing more than a 6, but I thought he was decent. They've mentioned Diego Dalot more or less, well, they haven't said these words, but more or less saying he had him in his pocket. And I find it fascinating, me, that we just played AC Milan, who are a massive club like we are. Let's be honest, they've more or less played us off the park, and they've got one of our players playing for them. I find that astonishing, to be honest, but there you go. And yeah, but I will say a 6 for Mason Greenwood, yeah, which is decent, or slightly above average, which is fine. I would say that was fine for Mason Greenwood, a 6. Bruno Fernandes, they've given Bruno a 7, but they've said should have claimed an assist for Maguire. Okay, Maguire should have scored. That was the header. Because Bruno headed it on, and it was Maguire should have put it in. His assist for Ahmed was world class. It was a great ball, but it's got to come off sometimes. If anybody saw the show this morning, I did an analogy about a magician doing a card trick and picking the wrong card 14 times and getting it right on the 15th time. It ain't very impressive, is it? So, you know, it's got to come, it has to work sometime if you're trying it that often. Nobody has to say, look, he's got so many assists. I'm talking about balls over the top. It's a ball over the top. Assists with balls over the top are pretty rare. So, you know, he tries a ball over the top that often that is, you know, once it does come off, there's no point in saying, wow, I don't think so. Anyway, wow, what a fantastic ball that was. What about the previous 35 times? And I'm probably not exaggerating there either. Long balls over the top, straight balls rarely come off. But they've said another moment, in inverted commas, another moment masking an off-colour performance, and yet giving him a 7. So they're inferring what I'm saying. It's an actual moment in the game that masks the fact that he didn't play very well, and yet they've given him a 7. So I'm knocking 1 point off that, and Bruno certainly didn't play any better than who else has got a 6? Scott McTominay, Nemanja Matic, Mason Greenwood are all on 6s, and I'm not having it that Bruno played any better than any of those players. When I talk about balls over the top, this is one of the things I was going to come to. There's an instant in the first half where Juan Basaka's got the ball on the touchline, and Bruno's about 10 yards infield, and Juan Basaka passes the ball infield, so about 10 or 15 yards from the halfway line in our half, and Juan Basaka's on the touchline, and he passes a dead straight ball. Bruno's level with him, and it comes to Bruno 10 or 15 yards infield. So Bruno's facing Juan Basaka, he's facing the touchline. If you look to your left, or if he looks to his left, Mason Greenwood's 10 yards in front of him, facing him. Obviously, the only option there is to give it to Greenwood's feet. Greenwood's facing him. He's expecting Bruno to take a touch, and they'll be available to pass it to. As I've just said, Juan Basaka's on that touchline. He's not up the field. He's there on that touchline. It comes to Bruno, and he immediately kicks it, first time, over the defenders, over Mason Greenwood's head, who's standing looking at him, and it goes all the way through 30, 40 yards, and it's an easy thing. Can't remember whether the keeper gets it or whether the defender mops it up. But it's, you know, there isn't a United player anywhere near. There's not a United player running towards that area. And these are the things that drive me absolutely round the bend that need cutting out. And there's some people in the fan base, some people accuse me of having an agenda. It's the people who want to defend things like this that have got an agenda. I just want it to be right. And that type of thing, it's absolutely horrendous. When you're playing football, when you pass it, you've got something in your mind. You look, you see a player that you're going to pass it to, or I can completely understand people getting a pass wrong. I can completely understand somebody missing it, perhaps it getting cut out. People might come on and say, "Oh, Matic I remember Matic put a pass into touch, for example." There's a good comparison. Matic put a pass into touch where he overhit it. It was about 5 or 8 yards in front of Juan Basaka, and obviously Juan Basaka was running onto it, but he had no chance of getting it. It was a poor effort by Matic. Absolutely, it was. It was poor. It was overhit, and Juan Basaka had no chance. But at least you can see who he's aiming to pass at. Do you know where I'm coming from here? So this particular instance, there's nobody in that area of the field. There's nobody running towards that area of the field. We need better than that. Don't just have the ball passed to you and just hoist it up the field. Just hopefully, is someone going to chase it? Or whatever he's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking, really. I really don't. He can't be just thinking, is someone going to chase it? But there's nobody there to look at. There's nobody running towards it or anything. It's just awful. So that's the sort of thing that we've got to stop. And I could go on about one or two other things. So to give Bruno a 7 and Matic a 4, the newspaper is an absolute disgrace. Honestly, an absolute disgrace. Daniel James, his selection was inevitable, but James is now getting picked for what he does off the ball. That's a good point, that. I wouldn't disagree with that. But he's not that bad on the ball either. And again, like everybody else, he lost it a couple of times and everybody jumps on that. But he played enough decent passes as well. They've missed a great chance. They've said missed a good chance. He did miss an absolute sitter without a shadow of a doubt. But I'm not just speaking about Dan James here. I've also said, don't forget that I upped Dean Henderson from a 5 to a 6, and he was at fault with the goal. And Daniel James was at fault with a miss, but it's one single moment in the game. And I don't think Dan James only deserves a 5 when all the others have got 6s. At the minute, only Telles has got a 5, by the way. But I've upped Daniel James to a 6 from a 5. And Anthony Martial started encouragingly, but faded and was substituted at the pause, having required treatment in the first half. And they've given him a 5. Now, here's a rarity for you. I'm going to leave Anthony Martial as a 5. He got substituted at half time. He was only because of his injury. In fact, substituted at the pause, having required treatment in the first half. It was really early on that knock. I appreciate what a good player Anthony Martial is, and I appreciate what he brings to the team. And he still did that on numerous occasions. He still got hold of it and passed it well, but not involved in the game quite as I'd like him to be. Plus, he only played the 45 minutes. So as a one-off, very rare, I will agree with that 5 for Anthony Martial. But that's mainly because he played half a game as opposed to a full game or 75 minutes as most of these other players did. Ahmed came on as a sub at half time. I only marked the subs. I actually, a slip of the tongue in a previous show, I think it was the show this morning, I said it must have been the last rating, the ratings. I said I only rate the subs if they get half an hour. I rate the sub if they get half a game, not half an hour. And funnily enough, last night, Ahmad did get half a game. And they've put a magnificent run and header for his first United goal, fearless performance in the first complete half of football, and they've given him an 8. I am going to give him a 7, and I do think he was superb, absolutely superb for a young lad coming on like that. Couple of little things that he did really impressed me. Gets hold of it, passes it, plays with his head up, sees the short passes. Now then, here we go, talking about holding it too long and keeping it up. Don't get me wrong, this paper hasn't said this. I'm talking about what a lot of the pundits are saying, what most of the fans are saying. And yet some of those fans who are saying we hold it too long are probably also saying that Ahmad played well. This is what you get with football fans. Ahmed, on numerous occasions, got hold of the ball on the wing and ran in field, taking 3 or 4 touches and then passing it. So he's doing one of the things on numerous occasions that the fans are saying they don't want people to do, and they're all holding it too long, and yet they're probably some of the same people are saying how impressed they were with Ahmad. So I think Ahmad played really well for the 45 minutes that he was on. Maybe I should give him more than a 7. A 7's just good, or well, I'll settle for that. There was a couple of fancy flicks that I didn't like, but he won the ball back a couple of times. I would say he definitely at least deserves his 7. So I've only got Ahmad on a 7 and Eric Baily on a 7, believe it or not. I think one or two of the others have downgraded him a little bit more than I should have done, to be fair. But Bailey's got a 7. I will give Ahmed a 7, and I would say Ahmed for his first 45 minutes in the first full 45 minutes in the United shirt. I thought he did pretty well, and I was pleased with him. Hopefully he gets a bit of a run out against West Ham. It's a massive game on Sunday now against West Ham. We need the points in that game. Obviously, I didn't expect to be saying this at this stage. I've said this in a show a short while back, but we could do without West Ham beating us. I won't be absolutely devastated if we draw. Put it that way, because if we lose, West Ham will then be 3 points behind us in the table, and we could do without being just 3 points in front of West Ham. So that's that. I'll be back tomorrow, just with a little preview of the West Ham game. I'm not doing a player in focus. There isn't time to do any voting. Obviously, it's Friday evening now. The West Ham game's upon us on Sunday, so I haven't got time to do the voting for the player in focus. But I will be back tomorrow with a quick preview of the West Ham game and the weekend's football in general. I hope you've enjoyed that show. If you've enjoyed that show, please tell all your friends. Please subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anybody. Keep stum.